the interest of time, I'm going to call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. This is the May 10th regularly scheduled Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust meeting. It is now 8:47, and with a roll call to open the meeting, I'll start with Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, present.
Rob Henry.
Rob Henry here.
David Pfeiffer.
David Pfeiffer here.
And Steve Gomer here. Okay, this calls the meeting to order. We have a relatively short agenda, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be short on discussion. Is there any public comment in the waiting room, Cassandra? Okay, good.
There is not.
The project pipeline, Elm Street renovation update. Tom Mead, I see is signing on now. Rob, do you have any information on it?
Yes, yeah. Tom and I went over there last Friday, and we brought a developer with us, and we went through the entire unit, determining, just getting another set of eyes on it, particularly from a construction standpoint, and to get some estimates of all the things that have to be done. I think that the bottom line is that most of what has to be done is cosmetic. There's no structural change. We're going to have to certainly check the electrical and the plumbing and all that. There was one plumbing problem that Tom handled with a contractor a while back. I mean, the place is an absolute disaster from a cosmetic standpoint. The carpets are filthy. The walls are awful. The radiator, the baseboard heat, the covers were all off. But, we have that $50,000 threshold. We also have that first $10,000 that we can spend. So I think we felt, hi, Tom, you just joined it there. So yeah, I think we feel that, we can fix this place, and we want to do some of this cosmetic right away, because when you walk in there, as if you walked in there as a remodeler or builder, you would be very discouraged. Say, oh God, I got to clean this up before you even get started. So if we get somebody in to, rip up the rugs and clean up all the trash and all that, at least it looks, you want to use the word presentable. And then I think we'll get an honest effort in terms of getting a quote on something. We've got a couple of names of people. It's going to be the same as I think we all know right now. Getting people to do work is not easy, and then getting this, even if they say they're going to do it, to get them to come in and do it. So that will be the challenge near term.
I apologize for joining late. I'm still trying to get my laptop up, but I joined on the phone. So I would suggest, I assume we're going into executive session after this to talk about Heather Drive. I would suggest that some of the details of what needs to happen at Elm Street also should be done in executive session. Certainly has an effect on the eventual price that we would put on the property, total cost to develop and those types of things, I think should be handled in executive session.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's actually an appropriate executive session item. It's really for negotiations about real property or other. It's not just about what the price is. It may be about evaluating appraisals and things like that. So let me just think about it a minute.
Sure, I can.
We are negotiating about it, so we can stay within a budget and stuff.
If I may, Rob, I'll cut you off right there. I think the way, Karis, I think we want to approach this is that defining the scope of work would certainly potentially define project pricing, depending upon who's bidding it, right? And so the question really is whether or not a detailed scope of detailed discussion on the scope of work, which can get pretty ugly, whether or not that would give leverage to any contractor seeking to bid on it.
Yeah, as you indicated, you're going to have to use the RFP process to get a contractor that's a public process. So you could, and even selecting the contractor is a public process. It's really about the language of that exemption is to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. And that's with respect to the purchase, lease, exchange of the real property, not repairs to the real property.
All right.
Tom,
Yeah, if I can just, I guess I needed to flush my comments out a little further. It is very specifically to do with the ending value of the property. And because the ending value of the property, you know, if we discuss very openly, partially what you're saying, Steve, if we discuss very openly what is the physical state of the property and then what needs to be done to fix it, that, you know, when this hits the open market, somebody comes back here, watches these meetings back, knows exactly, you know, the state of everything, you know, prior to us stepping in, how much it might have cost to fix, you know, all those types of things. So again, it seems like it needs a bigger discussion. We've been asking for this discussion for quite some time, as like, because we've been told actually if it's under $50,000 worth of work, we don't have to do this public bid process. So we're having two different discussions in a lot of ways. My feeling is that discussing the scope of work does have an effect on the eventual valuation of the property, and it would, you know, it would be detrimental to the trust and the potentially eventual price of the property to discuss that pretty openly. So that's my.
and I agree 100% with that, since I'm involved in it.
Well, yeah, Karis, once again, I think the point that both Rob and Tom are making is that we're talking about a renovation or repair of the property for an eventual sale, right? That's the outcome. The outcome we're seeking is sale of the property. So the discussion that we have right now has a material effect on the price. Period. Not just the work, but if for example, you were a buyer of a home and the home you were interested in, somehow you gained access to conversations over the dinner table with the current owners, and you learned everything there was to learn that you might not have learned from a home inspection, right? You got to watch out when you flush the toilet because the tank leaks like nobody's business, but we think we can repair it for an inspection. Or, we've got a really balky heating system, may or may not show up depending on when the inspection's held, et cetera. Right? But if you could sit around that dinner table, you'd suddenly have a whole lot of leverage as the buyer. So my question is, are we talking about something similar, given that what we're doing with this property is reselling it? You're muted, Karis. Sorry.
Yeah, you're a public entity, and all this information is information that is part of the public domain, and the property was purchased with public funds. What you're doing with it will be done with public funds, and so in my opinion, I think that my recommendation would be that you should hold those discussions in open meeting. And now again, the law says the chair has to make a declaration that having the discussion in an open session would be detrimental. What the AG would look at is a good faith, belief that having those discussions in an open session would be detrimental to the negotiating position of the town, or the public body in this instance. So, that ultimately it's your decision. I only give you guys advice. I'm not going to tell you not to do something a certain way. So it's up to you to make that determination.
Okay, fair enough. Given that the conversation itself is probably going to take longer than I'd anticipated for this agenda, we'll take your comments under advisement. And Tom and Rob, if you're okay with it, we'll come back to this very, very quickly.
Back to it when?
Very, very quickly. Okay. it's not gonna wait for another monthly meeting. Okay,
Just a note on procurement, if something is more than $10,000 and less than $50,000, you have to go through the 3 quotes process,
Right.
which is less formal. That doesn't require a formal RFP, but you still have to go through some sort of public process of getting quotes.
okay. Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob and Tom, I think that was our understanding of it based upon the value of the work.
Yep. Yes, exactly. And so like I was previously authorized to spend up to 10,000 to make safe, to, develop the scope of work, to do those types of things, which is, what Rob and I effectively got started on with the first walkthrough last week. And then, so we're under 10 and so we're okay there.
Yep.
Yeah. And then if we can keep, if it looks like the scope can come in under 50,000, then yeah, of course we'll need to get multiple bids. But we don't have to go through the more formal full-on RFP. That is what we understood.
Correct, that's right.
Okay. If the trust is all right with this, then I would say, let's come back to this. I'll communicate with you through Cassandra as to how we follow up on this item specifically. Okay. Given that, Rob, I know you have a desire to move things along, and this may require a special meeting in which we can draw a quorum, sometime in the next week or less. All right. If anybody thinks differently, I would prefer to hear from you.
Steve, I'm sorry I was late. Can I just have clarification? Are we in executive session or is this,
We
did
are
we just
not.
open up regular meeting? Okay.
We are not. Not yet.
Yep.
Let's move on to the next topic. The inclusionary zoning bylaw discussion. I think Cassandra had distributed each of you the summarizing memo from Tom Callahan. Have you had a chance to review it? Diane?
Skim it, yes. Review it, no.
Well, as a reminder, in a discussion with Tom, he makes the point clearly that they're happy for, they're happy to take in our input with respect to how inclusionary zoning might work effectively for the trust purposes. But be careful about being prescriptive. And I assured him that we weren't looking to write bylaws, but rather weigh in on where our objectives and theirs align and where our objectives and theirs might not align. Anybody want to open the comments?
Sure, I will. And I apologize again. I did skim it. Is he asking us for input based on some of the prompts that he provided in that? Or is this something that we should actually participate in a zoning bylaw group meeting?
No, it's really more being responsive to the outlines that he's given us. I don't believe that, from the conversation I had with him, I don't believe that they're looking for more participation within the zoning bylaw meetings. This again is, his comment to me is, tell me where we're lined up and tell me where we're not. And so that's our role in this. As an example, you may recognize that there's in reading this, there's a definitive set of language that effectively says we favor building on site where possible, building units on site. And from our perspective, if that actually inhibits a project from being completed,
Right.
and as a result inhibits addition of units, then that might actually cross paths in a negative way with the objectives of the trust. Right, Tom?
I'm unable to open it up so I can't read. I had taken a few notes, but two things I'll say. First, it's confusing to me, like, not to be prescriptive is, like, I think the calculation and the number, the way I remember it, I think it was too much money. I think it's very difficult to get anybody to probably write checks. Given how but I guess I'll stay away from that if that's not really what you're looking for. To your second comment just now about, sort of, let's call it like structure and intent, maybe. I didn't hate that language. It's fine to set out sort of like preferences or priorities, right? It doesn't strictly say, hey, you can't build off site. It just says, hey, look at it first. Okay. And I think the Harbor project is a perfect example. And it was the first time actually that I had heard one of these types of arguments for not building on site. This argument being, hey, you have $1 million condos on the water, right? And you're going to have these ridiculous condo fees. And eventually you're going to have assessments for big amounts of work that will need to be done. There's no way to adjust for that, right? And have an affordable homeowner within that condo association. Look, the cost to put on a new roof, right? Or upgrade to, new, wind, building regulations or something in the future is going to be significant. And so as long as there's no out and out prohibition about providing offsite, I think we've already proven, and set a precedent, so to speak, with the Harbor project in Cohasset that says we're okay with offsite, and we are going to think about it, right? And we're going to think hard, and we're going to try to include them on site if possible. But if not, if it doesn't work, we are open to it. So from that perspective, I think that part of it is fine. On site if possible, off site if possible, and write a check if not. And then it'll be up to, it does put us in this land of all the way back to when I joined the trust. I said, what you're going to do, if you don't have a lot of clarity, you're going to have some developers who will just stay away. And if you have better clarity, including a buyout, right? Including what is the number that I can just write a check for, and then some clarity around at what point can I write that check? Like, how much am I going to have to fight back and forth with the boards about whether or not I can do it on site, off site, or write a check? More clarity in that direction would attract more and higher quality developers, in my view.
Okay, thank you. Diane?
I agree with everything Tom said, and I think the clarity is really key. And it shouldn't be arbitrary, a developer should know what that number is, and it shouldn't be up to, a board at whatever time they're making those decisions. So just in terms of like process for input, I wonder if we should take up these zoning bylaw, the zoning bylaw working group that's really working on trying to give some clarity to the bylaws next fall. If we should do a Affordable Housing Trust, Affordable Housing Steering Committee kind of joint meeting where where we're bantering around all these questions and just having a more fulsome conversation. That's the piece that's missing, because I'm concerned a little bit about if, like, we have our conversations and Affordable Housing Steering Committee has their conversations. And I mean, I know these are all public meetings, but public's not here. But if we had a bigger kind of conversation about this with more stakeholders on the committees, and then funnel that information over to the working group, I think the public would be better served. So I just recommend that.
Okay. Do you, would you be okay getting a hold of
Rob?
Paul Kearse and seeing if we can schedule that?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Tom, in the meantime, this may be your swan song, but I appreciate your commentary and the focus of it. And I agree. I mean, if we can make it such that we can attract developers into this town as opposed to deter them, because the projects are going to get done one way or the other. That's, you know, it makes it much more likely that we're going to get outcomes that are aligned with our objectives as well.
And here, you know, here's one where if that meeting is a public meeting, you know, affordable housing and the ZBA or the zoning bylaw committee, you know, is held, like I will gladly attend.
And piggybacking on that, this is my swan song. I'm literally unable to attend this meeting because I'm the select board representative after Saturday, when I won't be, so or be part of this group. And I just completely lost my train of thought, but it was in terms of I'm happy to talk to Paul and try to get this joint meeting together. Oh, the other thing to put on that is also the MBTA housing requirements, because everybody's like, well, this is great for affordable housing. It is good for affordable housing because we have inclusionary zoning, but it is not, it's an effort to create housing, and it's market rate housing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think having that part of a bigger conversation is really important for the community.
Okay, thank you. We have 3 items on the administrative side before executive session, and I am
Steve,
pushing.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You had asked me to take a look at this bylaw, and I had a couple of things that I thought you all should at least think about.
I'm sorry, Karis, thank you. Go ahead.
No worries. The 3 or more units going down from 5 to 3, you know, in the context of your discussion about deterrence, that means 1/3 of the units gets, you know, becomes uneconomic essentially for the developer, or could be uneconomic for the developer. Most of the communities that I'm aware of that have inclusionary zoning start at 5 or 6, trying to get closer to that 10 to 15% mark. I think that's just something you should think about and what makes sense for Cohasset. 3 is pretty aggressive. And I know, having worked with Tom on the planning board, I know he's very passionate about this, but I think you should think about whether it's realistic. You don't want to create a bylaw that then says there are going to be no small developments in Cohasset because we can't afford to do them. And then on B, the preference on the units, I think there should be rolled in there some sort of consultation with you all. You know, the planning board should be required to consult with the Affordable Housing Trust as to the preference, because you all are the experts, and while it's their permit and their determination, I think getting that feedback from you is important, and I think the Harbor Project demonstrated exactly why that is important.
Thank you. Karis, can I realize it's just a couple of points, but would you mind terribly memorializing that and
Sure.
sending it out to us? Because I think, you know, our goal would be to present a comprehensive view. And to Tom's point earlier, your observation on just how restrictive the proposed language is with respect to the trigger units, 3 as opposed to say 5. Possibly that you know, a potential solution there would be that if you're a small developer, sub 5 units, then there is a cash component as opposed to a give up component.
Right, and maybe it's a smaller cash component or something, but I
Right.
think the cost of an entire unit in a development of 3 seems, you know, could be challenging.
Right. Right. Okay. Are there any other comments on inclusionary zoning bylaw at the moment? All right. Administrative, yeah, although it's, well, I'm sorry, next meeting date is to be rescheduled from June 14th. We haven't done it yet, right? So that's coming up. In all likelihood, we will have a meeting of at least a quorum sooner than that to discuss the Elm Street project, as we just talked about. Has have you all reviewed the March 8th and April 12th minutes? Are there any
Yes.
comments? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
All right, motion and second, roll call vote then. David Pfeiffer,
David Pfeiffer, aye.
Tom Mead,
Tom Mead, aye.
Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, I.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
and Steve Gomer, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
I'm sorry, Diane, I've only got so many screens up, my
My
apologies.
last meeting, Steve, come on. throw me
No,
off.
it's right, the problem is, it's probably not your last meeting. Actually, that does bring up topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance. They were anticipated, they just were omitted in my mind. I want to express a deep gratitude to Tom Mead for his work over these past several years. Tom, I can only summarize it by saying we sure are going to miss you.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
Diane Kennedy, I want to acknowledge more than just these past several years, although that's our combined work on the trust. I've had the pleasure of being a thorough pest to Diane for the better part of, I don't know, a dozen or more years. And I want to thank you as well, Diane, for being so instrumental in actually getting this trust to the point where it's, it was more than just an item on the town documents and a living, breathing entity. So
Thank you.
we sure are going to miss you, but we know you won't be far away.
Right. I'm going to show up at every meeting just to troll.
We'd love to have you. And if you can come back and fill the seat that Tom Mead is vacating, we'd like that too.
I got to get past the select board.
I apparently we all do. All right, the next item is executive session, and I have exactly 60 minutes. Rob, go ahead.
I'm sorry, are you changing the date of the next meeting from the 14th to some other date?
Well, it needs to be rescheduled. Cassandra, remind me, why are we rescheduling it? Am I on vacation?
So it needs to be rescheduled because of staffing conflict.
Oh,
The
right.
MHP housing seminar is that day, and I'd like to attend. And if any of the other folks would like to attend, obviously that would be a conflict as well. So it just needs to be rescheduled from that day. You could pick it probably literally any other morning.
David, what is that program you used? Was it Noodle?
Doodle.
Could you and Cassandra send
Yeah.
something out there? Let's see what we can reschedule.
Steve, you're showing your age.
I don't use it. Listen, I get onto Zoom. That's pretty good for me. All right. Executive session. That's the next item on the agenda. I move that we enter into executive session under Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, subsection 21, for permissible reason number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and I do so declare. Motion is made. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Second.
All right, by roll call, once again, Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
David Pfeiffer,
David Pfeiffer, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Tom Mead,
Tom Mead, aye.
Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, I.
Steve Gomer, aye. We are now in executive session.
And then just administratively, before we close the meeting, Tom, so you said this is likely your last meeting. Have you formally resigned?
I haven't. My understanding is that my term's up in June and I just won't seek reappointment. I'm sorry, can I just one very quick?
Yep. So my understanding is all of our terms are up in June. Because of some administrative, Cassandra, if you think differently, but I believe we're all up. So all of you should consider obviously reapplying for your position so that there is some continuity. I we'll bring it up separately after the election, that the select board needs to put, make another appointment. I don't know where that'll go. But we're gonna be losing a lot of expertise with the loss of Tom, frankly. So I think it's really important that we help this organization that's done so well over the last couple of years by trying to recruit some good minds to join us. Rob?
No, I mean, maybe it's not a good question, but I didn't realize, and actually it was a few months ago, that you were on our trust because you are on the select board. And
I'm a
because
select
you're going
board
off the
appointment,
select
yeah.
board, you have to go off of this. But as a citizen of the town, you could reapply yourself for a position, correct?
I could,
Okay.
yes.
I'm not going to ask if you are or not.
Or assuming there's a citizen position that opens, but yes, I am an appointment, and it has to be a select board member.
Okay, so then there will be a board member, a select board member that will take your place on our.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there will be a select board member that will come on. Karis?
Just so you all know, under the terms of your trust and usually generally under the general laws, you serve until your successor is appointed. So just because your term is expired, you don't disappear off the trust and the trust doesn't come apart. So just a reminder of that. You can keep on serving until a successor is appointed.
But not me.
Sure about that, but
I stumped Karis. Woohoo! Anyway, Tom, in other words, yes, like you would still be on until a successor is appointed unless you formally don't want to be on, and then in which case you need to formally resign, with the
Okay.
clerk. That's my point, yeah.
Okay.
It's just an
Thank you.
administrative thing, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's also very important. It's not at all like sort of my assumption underneath.
Right.
So Rob is one of the demurring here, but I'm not going to. Will you step up?
Talking to me?
No, Diane,
Well, will I step up for what?
the citizen, like my spot, basically.
Sure. I mean, I'm sort of calculating things that I want to stay on, but I have to be appointed by the select board. That's the challenge,
Right.
potentially.
Got it.
May not be, I don't know, but if there's a lot of people that want to be on this, my guess is I would not make the cut. So,
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
yeah, call me offline.
Yes, yes, I will. But then more administratively, hypothetically, right now, we're all rolling off and all
Correct.
need to be reappointed.
Correct. Yes.
So
Correct.
forgive me, but I haven't kept up with the town politics and the factions and all this stuff. Is it likely that everybody, like, let's say you aside, right? Because you get the select board seat, but is it likely that everybody here would be reappointed anyways? First question. Second question, Karis, help us with this. We had talked about staggering terms so that not everybody rolls at once. Can we do something about that?
Yeah.
So first political question for Diane maybe, and then second process question. for Karis.
I don't think there will be a problem. I think any reasoned board would want continuity, especially on a committee like this. So I don't see any problems. I think it's just more like, change of palette, because Diane's been around for so long with
Okay.
me. So, but who knows? I mean, and again, they have to have applications. And I think what I'm going to recommend to Steve is that he immediately say, I need to keep this committee going. I recommend we go through the appointment process as soon as possible, because we have a functioning.
Basically a call for applications.
Yep, call for applications, and we would all have to apply again. But that's standard kind of operating procedure at this time of year anyway. With respect to the staggering of terms, I can't remember why they were set this way at one point, but we just started staggering CPC after very many years. And that's unless it's in the bylaw, which I can't imagine it is, that's the role of the select board. And that could easily be done. So in other words, like, let's assume all of us reapplied for citizen positions. David might get a 1-year appointment, Cindy might get a 2, Rob might get a 3, just to begin the staggering. Karis, sorry.
Yep, your bylaws say very specifically, you're appointed for a term of 2 years to end upon June 30th of the expiration year until a successor is appointed. It does not discuss staggering at all. So I think you could
Be a
revise
bylaw
the
change.
trust document. And that would be, that's something you have control over.
That's in the trust document?
That's in the trust document.
Oh, okay, that's easy then. Yeah, we can change
Yeah.
that.
So you
This
can
group can
change that,
change.
right?
Okay. All right,
Yeah, I would suggest staggering,
okay,
absolutely, and that's simple to write.
yep. That can be on June's agenda. Okay, I don't want to belabor this too much because we haven't really put this on our agenda, but thank you all. Tom, really, you've just been amazing, and your work for this committee has been amazing in the town. So thank you for your expertise.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. And again, it really is about sort of like bandwidth and I don't feel I can give this what it needs. I will continue to be a part of the conversation, especially with the zoning bylaw stuff. I have,
Yeah.
Sort of personal interest in all of it really. So anyways, I'll continue to be an involved citizen, just not, required to show up monthly and have the kind of, actual commitments, right? So
Yeah.
anyways, thank you very much.
I always say an involved citizen sometimes has a lot more influence than those of us that are slogging it out under the open meeting law in meetings. So knock it out of the park, Tom.
Thank you
All right,
very
I'll
much.
call for a motion to adjourn. Thanks, Karis, for joining us.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? All right, roll call. Rob,
Rob, Henry, I.
David,
David, I.
Tom,
Tom Need, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Matheson, I.
and Diane Kennedy, aye. We're adjourned. Thank you. Party at my house on Saturday night, everybody.